Hello. Thank you for joining us for episode 392 of the Sunday New York Times Read Along, hosted by Neil Parekh and Sree Sreenivasan. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all the things you do to make sure people find this show. We're going to be focusing on the No Kings rallies, and of course the verdict against Meta and YouTube recently in terms of tying social media to mental health. And the interesting thing about that is that it's not it's specifically the product, not the content, but it's the way the products are set up that were called into question. But we are looking forward to a great show. Thank you to everyone who is joining us and who's watching the replay. We appreciate you taking the time to come back to the show. The show, of course, is produced by Digimentors, the social media consulting firm that Sree started with his friend Andrew Lee several years ago. We also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Muckrack and the Graphic History Company. Thank you so much for your support. We have several people watching. I want to give a quick shout out to some of our early risers. Patricia is watching, as says Grace and greetings from New York. Miriam says good morning from Hell's Kitchen in New York City. And John says greetings from the East Village. So thank you. We're looking forward to a great show. Let's bring on our host, Sree Sreenivasan. Sree.
Hello. You can see I have my Muckrack cup. We need a Graphic History cup as well because we want to promote our sponsors. We're so grateful to the team at Muckrack, the wonderful team at both Muckrack and at the Graphic History Company. Hello, everybody. I've been gone out of New York for 24 days. It doesn't seem like that long when you say it that way, but I was in 5 countries in Asia. Trying to get home wasn't easy. I had to come through Dubai in the middle of the war, and when we had to make a decision, the Air India flight via Delhi to New York was $4,000. Normally, like $1,000, right? So they 5x the cost at least, and then they had the Dubai flight, the Emirates business class was $3,000, which is usually like $6,000. So wow. I took that route, even though it's way more than I planned to pay. And I was in the airport, in Dubai airport, for just 4 hours. There was a missile alert, but 10 minutes later it went away. So people are so calm about it there, which is kind of interesting. And I'm just happy to be back. But everywhere I went, Neil, the question, as soon as people understood I was American, were people kind of attacking you. You're having to defend yourself about all the terrible things that America is doing in the world. Last week, I wrote a story, my essay in the Substack that I run, sreenet.substack.com. You can see the address right on the screen. I hope all of you will subscribe. We really appreciate it. In that, I said the worst man in the world has the most power in the world. When that comes together, we see crises like this, and it is unforgivable what is happening in your name and mine, Neil, and it's just outrageous. And I was on the show of Barkha Dutt, one of India's top journalists. I call her India's Christiane Amanpour, and she was live in Dubai. I was in Bengaluru, and we talked. And so if you go to sreenet.substack, you can subscribe and join. And because it was my AI training tour in 5 countries in Asia, I'm going to share the best tips from that in my newsletter tonight. So please sign up, sreenet.substack.com. We'd love to have you there, Neil. Is that Pete Hegseth and Trump giving every excuse why this war has to happen. By the way, a war that we declared over and won on March 7th, and here we are sending more troops again in our name. So unacceptable, Neil.
And here's the rest of the newsletter. And there's a message about the Hidden Brain podcast on Wednesday, March 25th. That was last week. This is last week's
We were able
edition.
to partner with Shankar Vedantam, who has one of the world's 20 top podcasts, Hidden Brain, and help promote that. So thank you, Shankar, and congrats on your sold out show. He sells out 1,500 seat places across the country. So he's great. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This is the New York Times Read Along. We'll get to the paper in just a minute. That's Neil. He's in the DC area. They call it the DMV. I'm in Manhattan. Let me just show you. It's a beautiful but cold day in Manhattan. That's UN headquarters. That's the East River. That's Long Island City. And it's about 0 degrees Celsius, 35, 32, 33 degrees Fahrenheit here in New York. We have a lot to get to. We have people watching around the world. We just want to say hello to them. Gunter, watching from Austria. Thank you. Ken, watching from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 25 minutes north of a great No Kings rally in Iowa City. We'll get to some of the No King stuff in a moment. Diane, watching from Margate, New Jersey. Oh, look at this. Sangma is watching from Shillong in India. We're so happy to have you with us. Thank you. Chris Gorman is watching from New York. And Patricia Freudenberg is here and says, welcome back. And Neil, over to you.
What am I don't have the script, Sree. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do at this stage of the show. Yes, my mom is watching. Hey, Mom, from Hastings-on-Hudson, New York, where I grew up. She's still in the house I grew up in, at least for now. Mom, you're working on downsizing, right? On getting out of there. She says we had a great No King march in the country. I hope the message is reaching President Trump. I don't hold your breath, Mom. I'm not sure that he has ears. I do want to go back to Chris Gorman's hello, though. Just want to point out and make sure that when we get a chance, there is an article in the Metropolitan section today, or real estate maybe, that shows a diagram of New York City that someone built that Chris shared with us.
It's a 3D. It's a whole model of New York. Every building hand carved. Similar, I guess, in theory, to the one that's in Queens at the Queens Museum, made in the 60s. But this is someone who has done one up to date. It's at the Museum of the City of New York, and I'm hoping that Chris will host us all to come out and see that. So, Chris, let's talk when we have a moment. I am looking for my real estate section while we speak. It was in yesterday. It gets delivered yesterday, as you know, in New York. So if I don't find it, we will show the online version. But Stefan's here. Good morning. We have around 500 No Kings participants in Ramsey, New Jersey. And Avirod is watching. Avirod is watching and says, good morning, Sree. Great to see you after the concert. Everyone, tag your friends. Tell them we are live right now here in New York, but you can watch us live or later on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and go to digimentors.group and look for the New York Times Read Along, because there Neil has great goodies in previous episodes, including last week he had put in the Africa food recipes special section of cooking. So you can get the PDF free. These are world exclusives that are only available on our website, because if you're a subscriber, you get the print edition. If you're a digital subscriber, you get the digital edition, but you don't get the PDF unless you're watching us. So go to digimentors.group, go to the read along, scroll down and look for different places, click through, and you'll find, Neil, about 1 every 2 episodes has something, 2 to 3 episodes.
Absolutely. Either PDFs or gift links, just additional content that we can't, it's harder to put on social media, on Facebook and YouTube and such. So we always direct people back to our website. And the other thing to note, just for folks watching at home, in case you're looking for an old episode or you're trying to get back to share something, just as a reminder that Facebook deletes these episodes after 30 days. So it's not a long-term option in terms of sharing that Facebook link. It's where most people watch. It's where most people engage. Of course, that's where Sree started the show 10 years ago, just on Facebook. But that's why we encourage people to go back and look at our website to find those shows. And here is a look of what that looks like when you scroll down. We have several shows at the top, kind of our highlights, if you will. Brian Stelter, Jake Silverstein from his office. Sree, that was part of my birthday week several years ago. Wednesday afternoon at the New York Times office, 4 days before the print edition of the New York Times Magazine came out, we had a special preview.
That was like magic, Neil. It was part
right?
of the birthday celebrations, and well earned by you. But it was built up after all the stuff that we have done together, and there you can find our entire history. So everyone, please take a look. I mean, to be accurate, it goes back about 5-6 years. Does not go all the way back the 10 years that we've been doing this. We also want to give a big shout out to our friends at Scroll.in. Thank you so much for hosting us. Scroll is one of India's most important independent news websites. They have Scroll Global also, so please check out Scroll.in. And by the way, Chris has already agreed to having us come and see the show. So we'll have a New York Times read-along visiting tour of there. If maybe we can somehow do it on a Sunday, that's all too complicated to think about now. But Chris has given us a thumbs up. Thank you, Chris. And we will somehow get to you, and we appreciate that. So what happens in the read-along? We go through the different sections, mainly the covers, because we don't have a lot of time. But we also, Neil and I, exchange opinions, and we have occasional guest speakers. Today, no guests, just all of you and all of us. And this is the New York Times cover of the magazine. Quite striking. This is the Voyages issue, and Neil might know how this might be different from the traditional travel section, which of course was done away with during the pandemic. There are now travel inserts, I guess, but this is the Times Magazine take on travel. And look at that picture, and I guess this is in Alaska somewhere. This is the Iditarod, I presume.
And I'll just point out, Sree, from looking at it, if you hold that up again, I think it's just interesting putting the New York Times Magazine title. Is that in pink, or it's not quite white,
in
right?
Pink,
it's like a
in pink, and it's behind her, behind
exactly. It really de-emphasizes the magazine masthead, and really the picture just jumps out at you. I don't think I've seen that type of layout in a while.
And by the way, I just guessed it was a girl dog, and it says Dora leading Blair Braverman's pack of sled dogs in northern Minnesota. So it's not Iditarod. And photograph. So that's an interesting. If we get a chance, we'll flip through this, but we may not get to it. But I want to show you. So we start by actually, I like looking at yesterday's paper because there's so much news going on. Just the headline from yesterday, lead story: DHS's funding is sent to House and GOP revolts. So the Senate did the right thing. Fury over Senate bill. Hopes dimming for end to partial shutdown of government. Neil, so not only do you have, as an American, do you have to answer for the crazy thing Trump does around the world in terms of war and tariffs and everything else, but now they have to say, you have to answer for why airports in America are looking so bad with the big lines. And I dealt with screeners in America before I left for those 24 days, and in other countries, they all were aware of what was going on in America. And I cannot think of another job where people would be willing to work, 12-hour, 10-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour days and not get paid, and then having to do Uber in order to bring home some money. And they're doing this for week after week. It's unacceptable, but it's America today.
I was actually struck, Sree, watching a little bit of the Today Show. I think it probably was Friday, where they made a comment. There was a comment about, pledging to I think it was pledging to fix Iran in terms of the government there, et cetera. And the hosts turned to each other and said, maybe we should fix the airports here first. I don't know. Maybe focus on home, which I thought was interesting in terms of, they don't usually, I kind of watch it in passing every now and then, and they don't usually get that political on the Today Show.
But it's not political to say we should have good airports. I mean, that's basic thing.
Or it is, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. It's really crazy.
I want to start a blog that says one good news every day from the Trump administration. This is the good news from yesterday. Kennedy's clout fades as snags endanger his vaccine agenda. An unpopular crusade tests momentum. So that's one piece of good news. We need one every day. So because the rest of the news is so bad.
I'll say that I saw that headline, Sree, and immediately wondered whether was it at all possibility that RFK Jr. could go the way of Kristi Noem, who seemed untouchable, who seemed like she was, in control, and all of a sudden she had one major misstep, and with the advertising, the $200 million ad campaign, and Trump, kicked her out. Maybe RFK Jr.
I just looking at the dog and mentioning Kristi Noem reminds me that how you treat animals tell you how you treat people. And one of my favorite sayings is, dogs are the best people I know, but how you treat them matters, right? And so Kristi Noem, publicly kind of was boasting about killed dog. Like, why would you put that person on give her any power over people? And we saw how she treated that dog and how she treated people. We remember this also with so many things to do with RFK Jr. and what he's done with animals, including a cub, bear cub that he ran over. Somehow he killed or shot, and then he left it in Central Park. Like, this is not a normal man, and he should not be given any power, let alone the power over our health. And if you look at him, at first glance, you see, wow, he's got he's got a lot of photos of him shirtless, and he is jacked. But once you see the color of his skin, you hear him speak with that terrible raspy voice. You know about the brain worm, the worm in his brain. Like, do you give that man power over our health system? I've spent a lot of time in planes, Neil, in the last 24 days. He was the only person I've ever seen who walks to the bathroom in the plane barefoot. And there's a famous photo of that as well. So all of these things tell us things about this man before we give him the power. And so all the warnings were there, but he still got the power.
On the issue of Kristi Noem and how we treat dogs, it's a well-known kind of indicator, Sree. If you see in a family, if the dog is being mistreated, if a child is hurting a dog, that's the first thing that first responders or psychiatrists, et cetera, will look to. Is the child being abused? It goes downhill. So just put that in context in the way these people are treating animals. I mean, it's just a huge indicator of something wrong up and down the system. And
one thing we know about Trump, he's the first president in 100 years not to have a dog in the White House. So that tells you something. Good presidents we may dislike and like still understood that dogs play a role in people's lives. By the way, I was bitten twice in India, as you know, terrified of dogs. I didn't have a dog for 15 years. I had to fight my wife for 15 years, my daughter for 8 years, and then I became Mr. Dog. But even I could see the value for a dog for a family. Not everybody should have a pet, and certainly doesn't have to be a dog, but it tells you something about Trump. Just one more indicator in a million indicators. So it's like you can maybe the millionth and one piece of data about him. And that says something. Let's see. Rose is watching. Good morning from Connecticut. We have the New York Times or other media outlets said how many attended the No Kings protest. Did it turn out to be 8 million? Neil, do you know the answer? I'm going to quickly look at the story here.
I don't know the answer. And I would say, Sree, I mean, there's good coverage of the No Kings rally in the Times. I would like to think that they got, for at least the New York City editions, they may have had those numbers. They may have had, kind of full coverage. But certainly for outside the New York City area, in DC, I was able to get, pictures on the front page. But remember, the earliest editions of the New York Times around the country close around, noon or 2 o'clock if they're pushing it. So they can't get those kind of numbers. This is a great example of where you have to look online to see what those numbers might be. So I can do that while we're chatting.
Thank you. Yeah, there probably someone's done the numbers, and there'll be a dispute about them. So let me say a little bit about No Kings. I was there yesterday.
Please.
Our daughter Durga is now after having worked for Raj Goyal, who was a guest on our show, he's running for controller of New York State, and before that for Zoran Mamdani. Before that, and between those two, she worked for Musab Ali. She now works for Hands Off New York, a major or the anti-ICE organization in New York City. She leads their Bronx borough effort. She's just been there a month. So proud of all the work she's already done. But yesterday, they were in charge of the New York City rally. And so we are so proud of what she was able to do. So I'm going to show you a photo of her there at the front of the rally, helping bring everybody together, working with the team that made it happen. And I see her, she's already getting ready to go to another event with Bernie Sanders now in the Bronx. So she's leaving right now. Those I'd have her come here and say hello. And then if you look in the back, you can see Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York. You can see Cynthia Nixon, the actress from Sex and the City, and you can see Al Sharpton. But Durga's going to say hi anyway. So here she is. Let me just pull her up here for 1 second. That's her.
Hi, Durga.
Thank you all, everybody, for supporting my dad, who's been, talking about these issues for so long. And, I was radicalized very early. If you are excited about this, there's no federal justice without local justice. So what we're doing at Hands Off and have been doing for now months is creating these neighborhood tables so that we can make sure there's mutual aid in each of our areas, alongside combating gentrification and fighting for election protection. And the federal encouragement of our rights also involves the reduction of the canceling of SNAP benefits. So all of that is what we stand for and are really excited to be working on. So please do connect with me on Instagram. I'm Durga NYC, pretty easy to remember. And you'll hear my unsolicited thoughts about all that's happening and ways that you can get involved and truly make a difference outside of one day in the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga.
Durga, before you leave, one moment. When you see this picture, what were you thinking at this moment?
There's so much work left to do. And it's beautiful. And now I want to see these 350,000 New Yorkers who came out yesterday in this fight with us on the daily and contributing not only today with your beautiful faces and time, but every single day.
Thank you. And by the way, Neil,
awesome.
Letitia James, you can see her hand pointing. Durga had just told Letitia that I'm her dad, and so she then turns to me and shouts, she's pointing the finger, Durga is a star. She's a star. And that's what she says. So that was that moment. There's a series of pictures, and Durga kind of smiles more when she hears that. But that's amazing. But the story I want to tell, go to your
that video is on my Instagram.
Yeah, so you can
check it out.
Durga NYC, and you can see her Instagram. But the moment that I'm proud of also is that you see Cynthia Nixon there. She was also a patient of the same OBGYN Rupa and I were patients at, with Durga and Krishna. We were all there pregnant. Only one of us was pregnant, but all four of us were there. And Cynthia Nixon would sit there, and because we used to go in multiple times. And so we saw Cynthia Nixon there. And 22 years later, you see Cynthia Nixon standing behind that banner that Durga's team and Durga helped build. So it's a very special moment and tells you something about the No Kings Rally and the movement. One of the points that we're going to make in our newsletter today is it's, of course, anti-Trump, but it's also about his actions and his impact and his legacy that we have to fight. If we just focus on the man, that's not enough. And there were some great signs about the man. My favorite, you stink at golf. That's how you really get to Trump, is to insult his golf game. But it was so much fun to be there. It was a joyful atmosphere in the middle of a war and all the terrible things going on. There was love, there was joy, there was happiness that we're all together. It was community. It was very, very special. Thank you for that plug for Durga NYC. Please do follow her.
Of course.
Check out what she's doing. And we have seen so many cool people are watching. Let's say hello to them. And by the way, while just in the background, I'm going to have the video of my Facebook Live, so you can see it. I'm not putting the audio. That's on my Instagram at Sreenet. Sreenet. You can watch it with audio. But here I am in the middle of the crowd. Well, actually, it's at the front of the crowd. By the way, Padma Lakshmi was there. Robert De Niro was there. I have pictures with them as well. And they were at the front. And then Bobby De Niro stepped aside. And Cynthia Nixon came in. So it was a nice mix of people. Al Sharpton was there. Just so many people were there, and very, very meaningful. 8 million, John says, seems to be the tentative number. And John says, I rather approve of his not having a dog. Also, when I was young, if a politician mistreated a dog, it was the end of a politician's career.
Yeah.
So interesting. Miriam says, hello to Durga, sending you love. Patricia says, congratulations. And like father, like daughter. No, it's like daughter, like father. And Sudha says, I'm so proud of you and your work. And Godspeed from Chennai. That's the food king, Sharath Babu. I met him in Bengaluru. And Sharath grew up on the streets selling idlis and as a street vendor with no money. And then he's become the food king, as he's called. He's been featured in several magazines, TV shows. I was so proud to meet the food king. And Ruchira says, so inspired by Durga, go Durga. Ruchira is one of the world's most important activists and intellectuals around how we treat people, women around us. She founded apneaap.org. Apneaap means on our own. Apneaap, that fights sex trafficking and has done such wonderful work. So for you to say that about Durga is very, very special. And so many lines. Patricia, if not us, who? If not us now, when? MLK is certainly proud. Mary C. Curtis says, favorite sign, Southerners want ice in our sweet tea, not in our sweets. That's from the Charlotte, North Carolina rally. The man who made it was a foreign service officer in Estonia who left because of his disgust at administration policies. So many fun signs there, Neil. I think I should make a compilation of them because there were so many. There's somebody from the NAACP. And Neil, you were working in the movement, in the civil rights movement now, thanks to our clients, the John Lewis Foundation, as well as the work we do for the Southern Poverty Law Center, so many other things. So talk a little bit as you reflect on this picture and see all of these folks.
I think the biggest thing that strikes me, and we've seen this, I saw this in some of the news coverage from the Times, where they talk about the rallies in Iowa. Some of the organizers said that these rallies, these No King rallies in particular, attracted a younger age group, a younger cohort, and I think Durga's leadership in that is very telling. That's what strikes me in terms of a parallel to the civil rights movement in our work with the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation and the Southern Poverty Law Center. When you look at the civil rights movement, it was led by young people. John Lewis was only 20 years old in 1960, and when he helped organize the Nashville sit-ins, and he was 21 during the Freedom Rides, where he was, they tried to integrate the transportation system, and famously beaten. He was 23 years old in 1963. 25. These are the ages that he was at, and that's where that movement was fueled by young people. Even the bridge, the march in Selma, adults were reluctant to really push the issue. It was the high school students that went out into the streets, and their parents and the teachers followed them. And that's what I was kind of noticing in terms of this rally. Obviously, this is the third No Kings rally since Trump was elected. And, the question maybe, is there momentum for this? Are they able to keep the pressure on? Certainly, there's more of a focus on the war in Iraq and Iran, rather, and the immigration, actions with ICE. But having young people really drive the movement instead of kind of an older generation, I think, is an important shift to notice.
Very important. And there's a question asked on the front page of the New York Times. It says, will primal scream of no kings echo in voting booths? Crowds tear at Trump from many angles. And here are some of the pictures that they have in different cities. And look at the crowds there. You can see really big crowds here. Hands off Iran is another sign. And so someone asked me, what's the point of this? Will he care? Will it have any impact? And my take is that Trump is somebody who, above all else, understands television. And on his TV sets, to see these enormous crowds he will, part of his brain will be good. They're kind of, the focus on me. But at the same time, he will understand that what he's looking at are crowds that he cannot generate for his movement. Even when he does a rally, it's nothing like this. And so that's something that'll be at the back of his mind. And just to know, for everybody else, this has nothing to do with Trump, the fact that you feel you're not alone when you are upset about what you're seeing that's happening on the streets of or in America every day with the war and everything else, and you're upset about it, know that you're not alone, that millions of your citizens took to the streets yesterday, but are also sharing, posting, writing, talking. So marching is not the only way to do this, but the fact that it was peaceful, it was joyous, it was fun, I was so happy to have that happen. I will say that I was nervous throughout, because all it takes is one person from the other side to come in and cause chaos. They could easily start a stampede. We were with the police. They were there. The police community affairs folks were in uniform there and talking and smiling and just being part of the event. So I want to make that clear, that the joy of it was very special, but it could have gone in any direction very quickly. And you can see it was sunny, but also cold. I was wearing 3 layers, Neil, to try and stay warm. And then your kind of adrenaline heats everything up. So it was fine, but it was a special day. We walked from just next to Carnegie Hall all the way down to Times Square. And it was just really, really moving, so to speak, to be there. Let's see who else is here. Ruchira says, just connected with Durga on Instagram at Durga NYC. So much to do. Give us marching orders. And there's that 2-generational conversation where Ruchira has done so much already and will do so much more. And her interaction with someone who's 22 and just getting started. And Stefan says, please share this quote from Dr. Amy Attas, DVM, author of Pets in the City, True Tales of a Manhattan House Call Veterinarian. By the way, I didn't know there were such things as house call vets. A relationship with a pet is like no other. By bringing animals into our homes and making them a part of our families, sharing our lives with them, caring for them, we are at our most compassionate, empathetic, and selfless. I believe that our love of animals defines our humanity. And just in case we're coming on too strong, it's perfectly okay if you don't have pets in your house for a variety of reasons. And as long as you treat the animals you do interact with humanely and with love, that's perfectly fine. So you don't have to, I don't feel like we are pressuring people to go get a pet today.
You don't have to worry about that too much, Sree. Emily is still asleep, so she's not hearing any of this. And we're not going to, get more pressure. As folks may know, Emily has wanted us to get a dog for a number of years, and we've been resisting. But yes, it is something that people need to make that decision for themselves. And I do know that there are obviously a lot of benefits that people have from having a pet in the home. But when you have neighbors who have pets, when you have family, we go up to our relatives in Connecticut, and it is telling how people interact with pets. I do want to also, on the flip side, again, going back and forth, you mentioned being bitten by dogs when you were in India. There's some people who have very strong, very very visceral reactions, fear of dogs, and that's a real concern for some people.
And especially people come from developing countries where dogs are often deployed as guardians of the home and treated badly by the owners, kept outside, kept on chains to make them angry so that they will attack people who might invade their homes. And so that's definitely my godmother is deathly scared of dogs, not her fault. We have neighbors who are scared of dogs. So I totally understand that, since I was in that boat myself. And so you see that a lot. In some cultures, dogs are considered unclean, but cats are considered clean. So all of those things factor into how people approach things. So let's get to the paper, folks. This is the New York Times read along. That's Neil Parekh. I'm Sree Sreenivasan, and we're talking about the news. And we do this every Sunday live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as Digimentors.group. And make sure you follow Neil Parekh on IG so you can catch the show on IG on his channels. Massive crowd on both 7th Avenue and Broadway for No Kings. I didn't even realize there was a parallel march there, John. So thank you for that. By the way, Neil, again, what happens when you have a dog? You have to be considerate. We're having a dinner tonight at home. And first thing we have to do is find a place for Tara, our dog, to have a play date so that she can be out. And then she kind of makes a grand appearance sort of around dessert or after, but only after we check who's scared, who's not. If people are scared, we always don't bring her in till the very end, till those people are left. But often people are like, as long as she's on a leash and they've already eaten, they don't really care. So anyway, let's look at the paper. Portrait of Trump at war, impulse and ultimatums, surging between boasts about U.S. might and frustration over unmet aims. This is a war we've already won. He's told us multiple times we won this, but he's still sending people in, Neil.
It's incredible. I think that
incredible as point, not credible that this is happening.
Not credible, but just the idea of having that much dissonance in terms of where we are with the war, what we can see with our own eyes, what we're hearing from the administration at various points. It just gives you whiplash.
Yep. It certainly does. All right. So this is above the fold. Let's see what's below the fold, which is something you can only see on the New York Times read along if you stop getting a newspaper. This first story here is B. Oh, this is huge. That name is pronounced Thorough. I was Thoreau my whole life, but it's now Thorough.
Thorough. Yeah.
Thorough is how you pronounce it. Did you know that? Did you know that you've also been saying another name wrong? Instead of Salman Rushdie, the way we all say it, it's Rushdie. Salman Rushdie instead of Rushdie. But if you go around saying Salman Rushdie, people think you're crazy. As if you go around saying David Thoreau or David, see, I can't do it. David Thorough. If you start saying David Thoreau, people will not believe you. And this happened with Jeff Goldblum, who was narrating a documentary about David Thoreau. David Thoreau. Salman Rushdie.
Thorough in your pronunciation of David Thoreau. I mean, it's a PBS documentary, so hopefully that'll take root. But that's how you don't think it's gonna happen.
Enough. How will people know unless they make that point on the show multiple times? Hey, folks, you've been saying it wrong, because people just presume you're saying it wrong. I guarantee if you at the next dinner party you're at, you say I'm reading Salman Rushdie, they'll be like, who are you talking about? What's wrong with you? And you can't say, as you know, we hosted him together, so you can't say, well, Salman told me it's, but I don't think even he friends people anymore, right? I think on the show I did say something. I said something about it, and he said, yes, it's Rushdie, but nobody says that anymore.
Yeah, it's hard. And so if you think about that for a moment, Sree, in terms of for someone like Salman Rushdie, if you go through life and people are mispronouncing your name, that's something that is, earlier, particularly people with names that are from other countries, not foreign names, not, strange names. But when you're younger, you have to deal with that a lot in school. And as you get older, you get a little bit more, I want my name to be pronounced the way it's supposed to be pronounced, right? I have an easier first name, a little bit more difficult of a last name. But imagine someone like Salman Rushdie having to, just grin and bear it, because he's reached such a height of fame that you can't fix that problem anymore. That's an interesting dynamic to live with.
I've not thought of that. Often people, when they see my name and then try to say it, they will add an SCR on both my names. Sreenath, Sreenivasan, Sree. They say that because there's no words in the English language that start SR. There's always something in between. I know your brain's going overboard if you're watching live. Neil knows this already. But SR, there's nothing in between. There's no word that starts without something between an S and an R. So people add the Sreenath, the Sreenivasan automatically. And I never, when I was young, I tried to correct, but it's embarrassing. And you just want to hide when your name is in New York City and your name is Sreenath, Sreenivasan. It's hard. So
For
now people are more sensitive, but this Rushdie and thorough. Oh my God.
thorough.
The line here is,
For years.
yeah. So the
Go
line
ahead.
here, yeah, it's what they say is, it rests on the first syllable like thorough, as in I'm thoroughly confused by the strange turn of events.
For
Okay.
years, I pronounced your name with an H after the S.
Yeah.
Sree. And it took a while until I heard it or you mentioned it at one point, and I realized it was just a Sree.
Sree, yep.
You know, that takes some work.
It does. All right, let's go, folks. We have about 20 minutes with all of you this beautiful Sunday. As Cuba reels, Castro dynasty reasserts itself. So that's interesting. They're in charge. Meanwhile, in Iran, the Pahlavi Shah dynasty, the Shah of Iran, Pahlavi Reza Pahlavi was his name. His son is rearing his head and reasserting itself. Kentucky Republican thinks hate from Trump is worth it. This is about Representative Thomas Massey, and he was out there challenging Trump on so many things, including and especially Epstein. And a lot of people, Neil, during the No King's March, understood that this was a distraction from the Epstein files, what's happening in the war. Lawrence, thank you so much for watching from Hamilton Heights. We really appreciate that. And look at our friend, Mr. Blues Radio, number 62. Great show as always. Thank you so much. And
Hey, Mark.
and Mark says, Mark
Yes.
Lee, the sit-in folks in Greensboro were college kids. So Neil is following up on what you were saying. Marching is not the only way, but it is the most visible way to express opposition. Beautifully said, Miriam. And Jayant Patel in Gandhinagar, Gujarat, your home state. And that's great to have it.
Frequent viewer. Thank you,
Yes.
Jayant.
And people are watching. We appreciate this. And Miriam says, again, it's very expensive to have a pet these days. Tell me about it. There's something called pet insurance, but it's kind of a scam in my mind. I love pets, but I know some
until you get a bill.
Yeah.
Until you get that really expensive medical bill, which I'm sure you're going to pay, Sree. Forget about flying back from Sri Lanka. If something happens to Tara, you're going to pay through the nose.
I know. Saying. And now Sree is a total mush pot with Tara and many dogs. LOL. Great crowds in New York City or North Carolina, says Mr. Blue Spot. Two routes converged in Times Square. The 7th Avenue and Broadway converged. Wonder how many Eastern European athletes have their names mispronounced. For sure. Ron Thomas coming in late, was on a conference call out of Abu Dhabi, still in New Jersey and waiting to return to his home base of Dubai. And he and I are talking about doing some more collaborations together. Longtime supporter of the show, multiple times a guest on the show. In fact, one of the last shows we did live, Neil, was with him and me in our old apartment before the world shut down. And look at our friend Alex Counts is with us. Greetings from Hyattsville, Maryland. Participated in a joyful No Kings protest sign with a sign reading, "Immigrants make our country stronger." And Alex and I and Neil worked together with our friend Christian and the India Philanthropy Alliance last week 2 weeks ago for India Giving Day on Friday, March 13th. More than $5 million raised for causes in India. You all can still go to indiagivingday.org, indiagivingday.org, make a contribution, or just take a look at 51 organizations coming together. I hope people call Alex and ask how to do this for Latin America, how to do this for South America. For Africa and for other places that need this help. He's the guy to talk to. The India Philanthropy Alliance has done such good work. So many people watching. Radian watching from Bayshore, Long Island. Thank you. Anything in the paper about Cesar Chavez?
There is.
And
there's a big story.
Yeah.
There's a big story online. I think it's in the print edition.
A week later, for those of you who missed it, Mr. Chavez was a great leader of the movement for the workers' rights for farm workers. And there's a day named after him in California. But all of that's come to a crushing halt because of a 5-year investigation by the New York Times, where they went in and found a series of women, young girls at the time and women, who were assaulted, raped, attacked in forced relationships with this so as we would call him, a great man. And California has canceled No King's Day. Cesar Chavez Day, and it now calls it the day, Farm Workers Day. And Neil is going to tell us about an important connection he has to someone who is not in the original Time story, but having read the story, she then spoke out. 96-year-old Dolores Huerta. Go ahead, Neil.
Dolores Huerta, if folks don't know, was really, right there at the top of the movement with Cesar Chavez. And, I had the pleasure of meeting her recently at an event for my work with the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation. At 96, she's still, very, very strident, and was not holding back in terms of her criticism of Trump, etc. We also interviewed her as part of a podcast that the Southern Poverty Law Center does. Apathy is not an option. And in fact, the Times had been doing this investigation. I'm not sure exactly about the timeline in terms of when she shared her story, but she shared that she had been raped by Cesar Chavez. And, it was part of a larger culture of misogyny and, putting women to the side in the farm workers movement. And one of the things that, I think is worth mentioning, first of all, I just have so much, I was proud of her before and admired her. I didn't think I could be more proud until I heard her sharing her story. As a survivor myself, it was just inspirational to see her speak her truth. But one of the things that I think is worth mentioning, Sree, is how quickly after the allegations came out, and I have no reason to doubt the allegations, how quickly Cesar Chavez was canceled across the board in terms of the days that were named after him, streets, etc. How much does it take when a white person, like Donald Trump and others in Epstein, to cancel them, to stop renaming things? There is certainly an element of a different treatment there. I'm not saying he shouldn't be canceled. Others should be canceled as well. But this was it's a big story, and the story in the Times, I think it's in the print section, Sree, looks at the a week later the culture that Cesar Chavez built around and the compound that they lived in, just continuing to go deeper into that story and the experience that women had in the farm worker movement. And again, to note, Dolores Huerta kept quiet for 60 years, in part, primarily because she was afraid it would hurt the farm worker movement that she dedicated her life to. She put the movement ahead of her own mental health and her own story because she was concerned of what it would do. And, I would like to think that this far out, it is not, it can cancel Cesar Chavez, but not cancel the rights of farm workers and the gains that were made over the last 60 years.
So beautifully put, Neil, and you're right. I don't think that is, I didn't see that come up at all for a change. So I'm glad that people weren't saying this negates the work that he did. And we can think of so many mostly men who've done important, worthy things in their life, and then things have come up after, or even in their life when things show up about them. So, but the fact that she kept it quiet, and she had two children out of wedlock with him,
yes,
and had to give them up. And so I wonder, I've not followed the story, but are there now old women out there wondering if they are the daughter of Dolores and Cesar? That's something I just can't imagine having that conversation with yourself or your friends and family.
And this is the story that is in the paper. I don't know if it's in the print edition today, but the cult of Cesar inside the mountain compound led by Cesar Chavez. In his remote headquarters, the United Farm Workers leader began to see himself as not just a union leader, but a visionary healer. And this is a very prominent story online. I'm guessing from the date, it has a 3/29 date on it. It may not be in the print edition today. It may be in tomorrow's paper, but this is a quick preview of
Thank you
what
for
they
that.
have.
We have this international audience, including, you see, Janesh watching from Bangalore. Thank you. And to them, Cesar Chavez may not mean anything, but we are trying to convey the power of someone like Chavez and the role, the outsized role he played in America. Rahadyan says, I can totally relate about mispronounced names. And if I've been mispronouncing your name, Rahadyan, all these years, please forgive us. And Neil's putting in a link to India Giving Day, and you can contribute. There is definitely some institutional racism and in all that's going on. Ruchira says it's the normalization of sexual violence. The Epstein mindset is what needs to be addressed. Look at the people that have been canceled by the Epstein files. Noam Chomsky, like this is one of the most important people in the history of American intellectual life. Somebody who people loved and took so much from him in terms of his interests and his shared thoughts. He's been canceled. Larry Summers, who was Treasury Secretary, President of Harvard, been canceled, and so many other people, but not Donald Trump. Any other president would have been long gone by now, would not have been given the first chance, the second chance in 2020, or the third chance in 2024. And Neil, as I said earlier, we're having to defend Americans abroad, having to defend what is happening in America. But a part of me, Neil, always wants to say that Neil Parekh and I and others did all we could for 107 days, starting in July 2024, to stop Donald Trump. Unlike 2020 and certainly 2016, where I didn't do anything, I think we did everything we could. We co-founded South Asian Men for Harris. We did Asian American Men for Harris. We did everything we could. And we came close, but not enough. And now we pay the price. So everyone who has someone in their family who didn't do the right thing in 2024, come back into the fold, come back to reality, come back to where we can all stand up and make a difference. We're going to keep going very quickly. Miriam says the culture of misogyny was very strong and continues to be. Abused by men was not exceptional. Very important point. Thank you. Rajan says, not to diminish Cesar Chavez's depredations, but all cults of personality are dangerous, or at least have great potential to be dangerous. And the Trump cult of personality is certainly one of it. You know, I've been accused, Neil, of having Trump derangement syndrome, but the people who are in love with him also have Trump derangement syndrome. They're deranged in a different way. Neil puts that link to the article about the Chavez follow-up. And then Bill Gates's apology, right? He was been canceled of sorts.
Yeah.
It was so based on denial of what he was part of and enabled. He just distanced himself from the problem. Among the things in there are, I mean, I'm not going to ruin everybody's Sunday by telling you some of the things about Bill Gates, who I believe has saved millions of lives in the world from his work with the Gates Foundation that he did with his wife and his father, and has done so much good in the world. But at what point do you separate, as we say about Michael Jackson, the work from the artist? Woody Allen, the work from the artist. At what point do you separate the crimes and the terrible things from the inventor, the visionary, the person who led us in so many things? That's the question that I don't think we have an answer to yet. Story about no Kings rallies. I don't know about this Indian who was deported in 1950s until I was listening to a comedian. Entertainment can be great news and a history enlightenment tool. So I need to go find out about that Indian, Neil. I don't, unless you know who that is. So thank you for that lead. Folks, we have about 5 minutes left. We're just going to quickly look at what are the covers of the other sections. The book review.
As you're doing that, Sree, I just want to pull up, remember Bill Cosby this week, $59 million judgment against him for his crimes. So it is, it's pretty widespread.
And the fact that there are consequences. With Trump, there have been no consequences, and that's what's so terrible. But the book review covers Failing Upward, Karan Mahajan's new novel, it says. The Complex tracks the fortunes of a political family in a rapidly changing India. So an Indian novel on the cover of the magazine. These are things, Neil, that if you are just online, you wouldn't notice if you only get your news online.
Yeah.
And the Sunday Business is the promise of a degree broken. And I think graduates' anger goes far beyond the recent rise of unemployment and the looming threat of AI. So even more than that, I'm actually surprised there's more than that. So I would want to read this story and find out what else they're upset about.
Note the graphic, the design of that. If you flip that over, it's the graduates being fitted with an apron so they can work in Starbucks. Exactly.
That's the Starbucks one. Yeah. Well, good catch, Neil. A $1,000 grooming session for a poodle puppy. We haven't gotten there yet, but we are heading that way in this household. I'm the bad, good cop, bad cop. So I'm the bad cop on that. All right. Okay, here we go. Sunday Styles. Toxic confidence has taken over. Ooh. Modesty might not be cutting it when it comes to those who are bullish about themselves and they keep finding success. So, Neil, I really didn't know what I was going to say. Toxic confidence is over. Toxic confidence has ended. No, it says toxic confidence has taken over. So that's bad. Sunday opinion cover. Let's take a look. There's a pencil and about education. Separate from your phone. Embrace critical thinking. Your thoughts should be your own. A manifesto for the AI era by Cal Newport. That's very strong words. So do check out Cal Newport on the cover of Opinion. We have 3 minutes left. Meta and YouTube found negligent. Big story.
Earlier in the week.
Yeah, this was we had two. So there are multiple cases against Meta and Facebook, including 2 that were decided this past week. I believe Zuckerberg spoke or testified at both of them. But anyway, this one in California, a young woman in her 20s says she's been addicted to Instagram from the age of 6, and they've been found negligent. So that's important. And then the other trial, the Attorney General, the state Attorney General of New Mexico, saying Meta didn't do enough or even actively encouraged by the way it's set up, child trafficking and just horrible stuff. So we are going to see where this goes. If the penalties are 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, even $1 billion doesn't matter to companies that are worth trillions of dollars, right? So, but this sets a precedent, and there are thousands of cases all over the country. So, Neil, thank you for highlighting that. Really important. We're going to.
The big thing about this, about this lawsuit, Sree, is it's not just a question of that the content that is being shared, but it's the product itself. It's how the product is set up in terms of the algorithms and infinite scroll. It's features of social media that are being called into question, not just what is out there. And I'll just say, as the father of a 12-year-old who is turning 13 in less than 2 weeks, we have told her she is getting a phone number for the phone that she has. The phone up till now has been Wi-Fi only and no phone number, no texting. But we are going to be talking about the restrictions that she'll have on social media, and figure out a way to make that work. But it's something that we're very concerned about.
Thank you.
There's the real estate section.
Yeah, there it is. The work of Robert Moses? No, it's Joe Mackin. And Joe Mackin built by hand or carved out by hand or paper every single building here in New York City up to a certain date, I presume. What you're looking at there is Central Park. And the march yesterday was basically over here from Carnegie Hall down to Times Square. So somewhere in here was the march. But everybody go to the Museum of the City of New York, on Museum Mile in Manhattan on Fifth Avenue to see that. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to go there. I'll certainly do something live if Chris will let me. Chris Gorman, find him on social and connect with him. He's the person there who runs comms and so much more marketing and everything else. In search of a private chef. Ooh, a competition ahead of summer among the wealthy in the Hamptons. So this is how the other half, not the other half, what am I saying? The 1% of the 1% live, fighting for chefs. And then the arts and leisure cover is Real Housewives Change the Way We Argue, Blame the Memes. And then last but not least, I'm going to pull up here again the Times Magazine cover, really striking the voyages. The Times Magazine produces another magazine, I think once a month or every 2 months, Neil. Like, I've not been able to figure that out. Monthly. I think it's called monthly. T, the design magazine. Look how big it is and how many ads, and it's glossy, really beautiful. Competes with Vogue and everything else. And we've done nothing with it for 10 years. So anybody from the New York Times watching who has an idea on what we can do with this, a special edition of Jake Silverstein's office again, or the editor of this particular section, whatever, let's get to it. Folks, we are, after great demand, now available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Please like us, please rate us there. It makes a difference. Subscribe, rate, or follow, and it will make a difference to our success so that we can do this for you every Sunday. It just says, I just found out last weekend that how little African women are into real estate. That's interesting and important to know. Miriam says, years ago, it would have been impossible to say how the other half lives. Now it's a tiny percentage. And Sudha says, very good show. Main news about Durga and her involvement in the political process. She can motivate the younger generation. Shocking to me, Auntie, to hear her referred to with another generation behind, because in fact, kids like Emily are a whole generation plus behind Durga, and the way they approach technology, life, social media, the internet is different. Even in those two, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and in between, there are slivers of other generations in there. But we owe so much to generations before us, like Auntie, and so many people who are watching the show today. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Neil, I'll give you the last words as we get out of here and let people get to their Sunday.
So a few reminders, of course, if you want to be added to our mailing list, send me an email, neil@digimentors.group, neil@digimentors.group. It's a light email list once a week, just to give you the links to the show, the topics we'll be covering. And
so the surprise documents, the PDFs.
And the documents, the PDFs.
So even if you never watch the show, sign up for the email.
Particularly when we don't, if we don't have a show for whatever reason, like next week, it's going to be Easter. So we will not be having a show next week, April 5th, but we will be back April 12th. So we want to make sure that you know about that type of thing. And the other thing we want to just make sure you know is that when we're done, in case you joined us late and you missed the beginning where we focused on the No Kings rallies, you can find the recording on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and our Digimentors website shortly after we finish. It takes just a few minutes to reload on Facebook. It'll be available immediately on our website and YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can catch up on the earlier footage that Sree shot from the No Kings rally in Manhattan, a surprise cameo from Durga, and some of the conversation around that. So it's definitely worth going back and finding those clips.
Let me just read these comments. Gunter from Austria, always an interesting show. Thank you. Nikhil says, what a smart way to start the day. Thank you so much. And Sudha says, in my younger days, I participated in all the rallies and marches in New York and DC. And Neil, to be fair, women and men, uncles and aunties of her generation who have succeeded and made money in America tend to be conservative, tend not to speak out, worried about the authorities. And the fact that she did that as a younger person, we're so proud of you, Auntie, for doing that.
More context, Sree, just in terms of family history, for us, and you obviously have it in your family as well, it goes back to my grandmother, my mom's mother, marching in India during the independence movement. My mom had me on a picket line when I was 8 years old for the union that she worked with. And then, on down over the next several years, I went down to DC as a senior in high school to protest against the Persian Gulf War. I'm still surprised my parents let me go, but that's a different conversation. So that's something that it it shows a different level of engagement when you're actually willing to go out there onto the street. Yes, you can protest if you can. Yes, you can like a post and you can share a post. There's a lot you can do on social media, but seeing people on the street. I want to go back, Sree, in 2020, during COVID, the Black Lives Matters protests, before we knew what was going on and how you could get sick and people were really scared. How many people were on the street willing to risk that for something they believed in? I think that it's something we should think about.
No, absolutely. And I want to there's a comment here from Apollo. I hope he meant hello from Philadelphia. As soon as if he meant help from Philadelphia, I'm going to call him right after to make sure
Apollo,
he's okay.
Blink twice if you need. But that won't work here.
Yeah, well, but thank you everybody for watching. We're going to let you go. We're skipping next week, but we'll be back the following Sunday. And please check out my newsletter coming out today, sreenet.substack.com, and go to Digimentors and look at the read along. Follow along. Vidya says, Sree, thank you for inviting me here. Day 2 in New York City has been very interesting and inspiring. So proud of all the work you and your family have been doing. Vidya is someone I met while waiting in Dubai for our flight. And she and her daughter are in New York for a month. So they're going to be doing some stuff. And so thank you, Apollo. It is
hello.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to call you, but we'll chat another time. We had a comment from Nikhil. I was thinking about those picket lines in India. It was in the 1940s. They had an economic impact forcing change. No Kings is different, I think. So a good conversation, things to think about. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you.